The Golden State Warriors entered this offseason with a clear goal: build depth at center and fill the front court with versatile floor-spacing big men who fit Steve Kerr's offensive system. But the departure of Quinton Post to the Memphis Grizzlies has complicated that plan, and the Warriors are now reportedly revisiting a familiar name to plug the hole. Hey, what's up everyone? Before we jump into everything today, that like button right there is what decides if this video hits hundreds or thousands of people. 1 second is all it takes, but the impact on this channel is massive. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. Seriously, it's the simplest thing you can do, and honestly the best way to back this content up because every single like pushes this further. So hit it now. According to NBA insider Jake Fisher, Golden State has renewed interest in veteran big man Kelly Olynyk, who remains a free agent after finishing last season with the San Antonio Spurs. Olynyk's name has surfaced in connection with the Warriors on multiple occasions over the past 2 years, but this latest report comes at a particularly interesting moment, as the team continues its high-profile pursuit of LeBron James. Fisher was specific about the context surrounding Olynyk's candidacy. I think both Kelly Olynyk and Georges Niang are two big men that could very well be on the radar for the Golden State Warriors if they were to get a LeBron assurance, Fisher said. I think they would still like some frontcourt depth after losing Quinton Post to the Memphis Grizzlies. That framing matters. Olynyk's fit is essentially contingent on Golden State landing James. If LeBron signs, the Warriors' frontcourt takes on a championship contender shape that would benefit from a stretch center who can space the floor and pass out of the high post. Olynyk has historically checked those boxes, which is why the Warriors have circled back to him multiple times in recent years. The interest dates back to the 2024 mid-season trade deadline, when Golden State reportedly had eyes on Olynyk before he was moved from the Utah Jazz to the Toronto Raptors. The Warriors were again linked to him at the 2025 trade deadline, and conversations reportedly continued into last offseason before nothing materialized. Now the door is open once more. Quinton Post's exit changes the math considerably. The young center had developed into a reliable floor spacer who gave Golden State a different look than the team's veteran bigs. He shot well from three-point range and showed enough promise that his departure stings more than a simple roster transaction. The Warriors responded quickly by signing Charles Bassey, 25, but there is clearly some uncertainty about whether Bassey alone is enough to fill that role. That is where Olynyk comes back into the picture. At his best, the Canadian big man offered a unique combination of size, three-point shooting, and playmaking that fits naturally in Kerr's motion-heavy system. He can operate as a floor spacer while also functioning as a secondary playmaker from the elbow, and his willingness to set screens and move without the ball makes him a natural complement to a backcourt-heavy roster. The problem is that Olynyk is no longer that player. He turned 35 this year, and his time in San Antonio last season raised serious questions about whether he has enough left to contribute at the NBA level. He made just 42 regular season appearances with the Spurs, averaged 8.6 minutes per game, and was not part of their postseason rotation at all. His stat line reflected that limited role: 3.2 points, 1.8 rebounds, and 1.2 assists on 49% shooting from the field and just 25.5% from beyond the arc. That 3-point percentage is particularly alarming given that shooting is the primary reason any team would consider adding Olynyk at this stage of his career. If he cannot maintain consistent range shooting, his value as a floor spacer disappears almost entirely, and his role on the team would shrink to spot minutes, assuming he earns them at all. The Warriors roster is already skewed toward veteran experience. Draymond Green, Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, Kristaps Porzingis, and Al Horford are all on the older side of the league's age spectrum, and adding another 35-year-old who underperformed in his most recent season seems counterproductive to building genuine depth. A more logical path would be to lean on Bassey for frontcourt minutes and explore a two-way contract for Graham Ike, who provides energy and athleticism that Olynyk simply can no longer offer. Getting consistent health from Porzingis and Horford would do far more for this team's frontcourt than adding an aging veteran coming off his worst professional season. Olynyk remains on the market, and his familiarity with the Warriors' interest in him is not a secret, but nostalgia and familiarity should not drive roster decisions for a team trying to contend. Unless his camp provides meaningful evidence that last season was an anomaly rather than a sign of permanent decline, the Warriors basketball operations team would be wise to focus their frontcourt depth search elsewhere and use the Olynyk conversation as a fallback option at best. The organization must be disciplined. Building around Stephen Curry and potentially LeBron James means every roster spot counts. Adding aging players who are unlikely to contribute meaningful minutes does nothing for a team with championship ambitions. The possibility of Klay Thompson returning to the Golden State Warriors has been one of the most emotionally charged storylines of this offseason, and new reporting out of Miami has just given that reunion scenario a meaningful boost, though not in the way you might expect. ESPN's Anthony Slater discussed Thompson's situation on NBA Today Thursday, revealing that the Miami Heat have surfaced as a potential destination for the veteran sharpshooter if things do not work out with the Dallas Mavericks. But from a Golden State perspective, what matters most in Slater's remarks is not the Heat's interest. It is the word he used, buyout. Could they trade him, or theoretically could he be a buyout candidate? A name that's been floated around league circles with him is Miami. They're a team that if he gets in the buyout market, they really need depth and they really need shooting, Slater said. Thompson's situation with Dallas has become increasingly complex. His relationship with the organization has reportedly cooled, and conversations about a trade or a parting of ways have circulated in league circles in recent weeks. He carries a $17.5 million expiring contract, which makes a straightforward trade to Golden State nearly impossible without the Warriors attaching significant assets or salary in return. That financial obstacle has been the primary barrier to a reunion all along. The Warriors do not have an obvious trade package that clears Thompson's salary while also giving Dallas something they actually want. Any direct trade path would require a more elaborate deal involving multiple teams or a player Golden State considers too valuable to move. That is why a buyout scenario changes everything. If the Mavericks choose to release Thompson rather than hold him through a season where his presence could create locker room tension or distract from their rebuilding efforts, he would enter the open market as a free agent capable of signing for the minimum or close to it. Golden State has the flexibility to absorb a minimum deal, particularly if they are still navigating the financial mechanics of a potential LeBron James signing. A minimum contract Thompson would not block any cap maneuvering and would give the Warriors a proven shooter with championship pedigree, someone who knows the system, respects the culture, and still has plenty left to contribute as a bench scorer and perimeter threat. Thompson's interest in returning to the Bay Area became clearer last weekend when reports surfaced suggesting the 36-year-old was open to a reunion with his former team. He spent 13 years in Golden State before leaving for Dallas ahead of the 2024-25 season, and by multiple accounts his first campaign away from the Warriors did not go as planned. He now appears ready to consider a path back to where his legacy was built. But the Warriors would not have Thompson to themselves even in a buyout scenario. As Slater noted, the Heat would pursue him aggressively. Miami has been reconstructed around Giannis Antetokounmpo following a blockbuster trade earlier in the offseason and is actively looking for shooters who can complement the Greek freak on the perimeter. Thompson fits that profile well. He still knocked down more than 200 three-pointers last season at a 38.3% clip, which is a meaningful level of production for any team seeking wing shooting. Other contending teams would also make calls the moment a buyout became official. A 36-year-old four-time champion and five-time All-Star available on the open market would generate serious interest across the league. Regardless of age or recent form, the Warriors would need to be ready to move fast and make a compelling case beyond nostalgia. That case exists, playing alongside Stephen Curry again, with the added dimension of a potential LeBron James partnership, is a compelling vision. Thompson would not need to be the primary offensive option or even a consistent starter. His role would be clearly defined spot-up shooting, defensive effort on the weak side, and experience in high-stakes moments. That is entirely achievable at this stage of his career. The path forward requires patience and some external help. Dallas must decide Thompson no longer fits their plans. The buyout must clear, and Golden State must outmaneuver Miami and whoever else enters the conversation. None of that is guaranteed, but Thursday's reporting moved the needle. The reunion is not a dream anymore. It is a real possibility with a plausible route. It is also worth acknowledging what Thompson would mean beyond basketball for this franchise. He was part of 4 championship teams in the Bay Area, fought back from devastating injuries, including an Achilles rupture that would have ended most careers, and still managed to produce at a high level. His departure to Dallas felt abrupt to a fan base that watched him sacrifice so much. A return would carry genuine weight beyond wins and losses. The Warriors cannot force a buyout and should not overpay in a trade simply for nostalgia. But if the market moves in their favor and Thompson hits free agency, Golden State must be first to make the call. The window to land championship-tested veterans does not stay open long. Thursday's report confirmed the door is cracking open, and the Warriors now have every reason to be ready when it does. For weeks, there has been debate about how serious the Golden State Warriors actually are in their pursuit of Anthony Davis. Speculation swirled, reports surfaced and disappeared, and the franchise said little publicly while the Washington Wizards repeatedly shut down trade conversations. But a key detail revealed Thursday by The Athletic's Joe Vardon has stripped away any remaining ambiguity. The Warriors are genuinely trying to acquire Anthony Davis, and Draymond Green's opt-out was part of that plan from the beginning. Vardon reported that a team source, granted anonymity to speak candidly about internal decision-making, confirmed that Green's decision to opt out of his $27.6 million player option was made in direct collaboration with the Warriors front office, and was specifically designed to create financial flexibility to both sign LeBron James and facilitate a trade for Davis with Washington. Green's opting out, done in collaboration with the Warriors front office, was indeed to give the team flexibility to sign James and trade for Anthony Davis. The source told Varden, "This revelation matters in several ways. First, it confirms that the Warriors' interest in Davis is not casual or exploratory. This was a coordinated internal strategy, one in which a key veteran player accepted significant short-term financial risk, walking away from nearly $28 million guaranteed in pursuit of a larger goal. That level of organizational commitment does not happen by accident or on a whim. Second, it sheds light on the nature of Green's relationship with James and Davis, both of whom are represented by agent Rich Paul. The three men are close, and it seems unlikely Green would have sacrificed that contract security without some level of informal assurance from Paul that James and Davis were genuinely interested in Golden State. The source acknowledged there were no guarantees, but the strategic alignment between Green's decision and the Warriors' pursuit suggests the conversations had reached a level of seriousness beyond pure speculation. The LeBron James angle has been the dominant narrative of this free agency period. Golden State emerged quickly as a frontrunner to sign the 41-year-old after he parted ways with the Los Angeles Lakers, and that pursuit has consumed much of the off-season discussion around the franchise. But the Davis component was always a secondary layer to the plan, one that received less attention but is arguably just as important to the Warriors' championship ambitions. Davis, 33, is one of the most dominant big men in the NBA when healthy. His combination of interior scoring, rebounding, and shot blocking gives Golden State something they simply do not currently have, a true anchor around which an elite defense can be constructed. Pairing Davis with Draymond Green and Stephen Curry would create a front-to-back defensive infrastructure that is difficult for most offenses to handle, while also giving the Warriors a legitimately dominant low-post presence on offense. The obstacle remains Washington. The Wizards have been consistent in their response to trade inquiries involving Davis. They are not interested in accepting Jimmy Butler as the centerpiece of any deal. Multiple reports in recent days have echoed that stance, and Varden's reporting Thursday affirmed it again. Washington is holding out for a package that includes younger players, draft picks, or both. Assets the Warriors are reportedly reluctant to surrender in the quantities the Wizards are demanding. Golden State appears to be taking a patient approach, waiting until August 6, when Davis becomes eligible to sign a 4-year maximum extension. That date is significant because it could shift the power dynamic in negotiations. If Davis signals a desire to extend in Golden State or declines to do so in Washington, the Wizards may find themselves facing a difficult decision about whether holding the line is truly in their long-term interest. The leverage calculation is delicate. Washington holds Davis's contract and his rights, which gives them the initial advantage. But a franchise player who is visibly unhappy or uncommitted to extending creates long-term risk for any organization. The Warriors are betting that August 6 tips the scales at least slightly in their direction. Whether the plan ultimately succeeds remains uncertain. LeBron James has still not made a decision, and the Davis trade has not moved meaningfully closer to completion despite weeks of background maneuvering. What is no longer uncertain, however, is that Golden State is genuinely trying. Draymond Green turning down $27.6 million was the clearest possible signal, a voluntary sacrifice made in service of a larger vision that the organization has now confirmed is very much real. For Warriors fans, that confirmation is meaningful. It means the front office is not sitting idle while the offseason drifts by. There is an active, coordinated plan in place, and the people inside the building, including the team's most vocal and influential veteran, are aligned around the same objective. Whether Washington cooperates and whether LeBron ultimately commits will determine whether this vision becomes a reality or remains an off-season what-if. But the Warriors' intentions are no longer in question.